Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm deeply moved and very honored to worship with you this morning. And thank you for singing the Székely áldás on my native tongue. Let me begin with a story. A few months ago, I was in Asilomar on the coast of California, attending the Unitarian Universalist Ministers Association Institute for Excellence in Ministry. It's a long name. One of the workshop presenters was Reverend Michael Piazza, a United Church of Christ minister who is co-director of the Center for Progressive Renewal. At his workshop entitled Preaching and Worship for the Future Church and the Future of Church, I learned two things. The first, one size doesn't fit all. The second, be authentic. I will try to follow the path outlined by Reverend Piazza. This is my second visit to United States of America. 20 years ago, I had the privilege to be the Balázs Scholar at Starr King School for the ministry. At that time, I lived in San Francisco and did not have much time to wander in Berkeley. Now I take advantage of the opportunity and whenever I'm free, climb the hills in Berkeley to gaze upon the bay. I admire the ingeniously made bridges and the awe-inspiring arch of the Golden Gate whenever it's not foggy. It is not easy to overcome the cultural differences between disparate countries and societies. I am from Eastern Europe, and I feel so fortunate to address a widely read audience who knows more about Eastern Europe and Transylvania than the average Americans do. I nurture the secret hope that amongst you, the idea of global partnership or global church partnership is not a new thought. Yet the first thing average Americans associate with my country is Count Dracula, the vampire hero. He made my life miserable several times. I ran into him beginning of the 1990s when the partner church movement restarted and the first American Unitarian Universalists arrived in Transylvania, eager to meet us and perhaps the Count as well. Growing up in a communist country, I had never seen Béla Lugosi portraying Count Dracula in the original horror film, nor did the word literature classes I attended talk about the Gothic novels of the Victorian age or Bram Stoker. Well, after reading his novel as an adult, I made my peace with the Count. The writing was not that fascinating, but by putting the story in the Victorian context, I quite enjoyed it. Still, long before the infamous novel appeared in 1897, the two Unitarian communities on either side of the Atlantic were already connected. My first job as a young man was as a car mechanic in a service center. I worked there for a year, and I was fascinated with mechanics. I was amazing to see how power was distributed, how motion accelerated or slowed according to the gear change. I was mesmerized when I understood how gear wheels meshed with one another transmit the required force. This image of meshed wheels reminds me of the beginnings of Hungarian and English-speaking Unitarian connections. Until the dawn of the 19th century, our two communities were not engaged. They acted separately, not knowing much about each other. The wheels were turning without being connected. No one can deny that Channing's Baltimore address in 1819 reshaped the congregational order of New England. Something similar happened in Transylvania, when an enlightened philosopher was elected as Unitarian bishop and set many congregations in motion. A Hungarian-speaking Unitarian nobleman named Alexander Bölöni, or Bölöni Farkas Sándor, is credited as one of those Unitarians who meshed the gears. He visited the North American continent in 1831, meeting with the most notable Unitarians of Boston. He was even welcomed by the 7th President of the United States of America, Andrew Jackson. Returning home, he wrote a very popular book about his travels, entitled Travels in North America. Alexander Bölöni is considered the Hungarian Tocqueville. By the way, they met, Tocqueville, Alexis, and Sándor Farkas in USA. And actually, Bölöni Farkas Sándor's book appeared a year earlier than Tocqueville's. But because Bölöni wrote in Hungarian, no one read his book. Bölöni experienced for the first time as a Hungarian how constitutional democracy changed life on the American continent. No wonder he highly admired his idols, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, and George Washington. A British-born and much-traveled man named John Paget, or Paget János, as we call him, is to be credited as the one who shifted the gears. He married a Hungarian baroness and moved to Transylvania, where he promoted not just scientific agriculture, but in 1860 arranged to establish a scholarship for Hungarian Unitarians in London at Manchester New College. The zeal and commitment of the Manchester New College students returning to Transylvania to spread English customs and culture was truly a prophetic one. Just to mention one example, an English conversation club was organized in the city of Klausenburg, or Kolozsvár, with Unitarians being the standard bearers. I came across a letter, an anonymous letter from 1867, written by someone right after the English club was formed. This letter throws a light on certain linguistic or language matters. I quote from this letter. "Dear sir, I heard from the papers that you are to form an English club. I cannot but greet this idea as a very good one and as in accordance with the spirit of the age. The superficial French language and its demoralizing influence in this country must be dispossessed by the manly and beautiful English language. And there are no better means to enact this than to popularizing it by a central club. End of quote. The demoralizing influence of the French language did not turn the English club members' hearts to stone, and many of them were to become members of the French club as well. Due to the English speakers, another project was carried out. With the aid of the American Unitarian Association, in the 1870s, William Ellery Channing's collected works were translated into Hungarian language. The influence of Channing on Hungarian Unitarian scholarship was like opening a dam, as one of our former bishops stated. Several hundred years of oppression and isolation had blocked the dam, but once open, the ship of Unitarianism was on open waters again, and Transylvania Unitarians were not afraid to explore new lands in theology and ethics. The Unitarian folklorist, poet, and bishop named John or János Kriza, in a letter to the American Unitarian Association dated 1870, wrote, "I cannot thank you enough for your generosity, which made us much stronger. We knew that the best way to express our gratitude is to make generally known here in the eastern countries that the brightest stars of your flag, spiritual freedom and pure ideas of religion and morality." I'm sorry, I think I missed a line, so I will repeat it. Excuse me. We knew that the best way to express our gratitude is to make generally known here in the eastern countries the brightest stars of your flag, spiritual freedom and pure ideas of religion and morality. Now, as the three Magi, we too have seen your stars, and we shall never stop respecting them. Yes, since we have seen your stars, we have experienced the transformative power of our meshed wills. Be authentic, taught Reverend Piazza. I will need your help and imagination to walk on the path of authenticity. I invite you to an imagined visit to Transylvania. It is not that hard to picture the green rolling hills, the white-washed church steeples, the horse-drawn hay wagons. You can smell the sour sweet wood burning in the stoves and see the smoke folding over the roof tiles. You can hear the bells ring and the dogs howl. Imagine yourself sitting side by side in the rustic pews with your neighbors from the village, praying on a Sunday morning. Notice the wrinkled, sunburned faces, and gently fix your eyes on their calloused hands folded in prayer. Imagine the feeling of shaking hands, the rough touch of your sisters and brothers' palms. They work the soil every day with those hands. They touch and caress each other with those worn hands. And they hold the communion chalice with those same hands. Those blessed, rough hands raised and cherished me. Those hands folded over my little hands and taught me how to pray. They are my heroes, the folks of Transylvania, with their calloused hands and snaggled nails and wrinkled faces, for they are the ones who did not cease to hope and pray for a better life, not even during long periods of oppression and injustice. Deprived of all their earthly possessions during the communist dictatorship, they still nourished their hope, not for themselves, but for us. It takes more than a village to pass on your faith and hope to the next generation. Imagine now a communion service, the special event of the year when the villagers form a circle around the Lord's table. They stand there by gender and age groups, the elder man being followed by middle-aged and then by the youngest member of the congregation. The women follow the same pattern, respecting the boundaries of tradition. It is not easy to cross boundaries. As Jewish wisdom literature puts it in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 10, verse 8, whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake. There are so many walls and boundaries, and there is a high risk of being bitten by the snakes. Yet, the dividing walls should be demolished. 1989 was the year when the infamous Berlin Wall came down. Since then, Central Eastern Europe has witnessed many changes, yet there are still more walls to break through. In the last 25 years, in my post-communist country, new dividing walls were built. There are the walls of intolerance, racism and homophobia. There is a wall dividing different ethnic communities. And there is an enormous wall of injustice. It will take several years and many wounds until we break through these walls. We may be bitten many times, yet I am convinced that we will charm those snakes and put them where they belong, on the coat of arms of the Unitarian Church. I'm conscious of the antipathy that casts a shadow over every attempt to break through the walls of nationalism, the walls of homophobia, the walls of all kinds of discrimination. But ultimately, with your engagement and moral support, we will overcome the boundaries of fear and hate. I assume that you have already noticed that I am not a native English speaker. I belong precisely to the Hungarian-Székely community of Transylvania. We often sing the Székely anthem in our churches. That is different that we had sung earlier. I am proud of my identity, and I am deeply moved whenever we sing the Székely anthem. Yet, I think it is pessimistic and inward-looking. It was written right after the First World War. I understand why my people craved the rule of the legendary Prince Csaba. But I understand as well that Transylvania was not forsaken by God, as we sing, and her blessed land and earthly paradise still belong to all who live there. Without changing identity, I am more comfortable with another song known as Transylvania, the Blessed Country, which is the unofficial anthem of the Transylvanian Saxons, the Germans. Leopold Max Moltke, a liberal-minded Prussian who made his home in Transylvania, wrote it in 1846. The song expresses a patriotism that includes love of the land and of its diverse ethnic communities. I quote two stanzas of the hymn in English. Transylvania, land of tolerance, bastion of many faiths, preserve over the centuries your sons' right to liberty, and be the home of honest words. Transylvania, our sweet land, our dearest mother country, may you be blessed for your everlasting beauty, and may harmony reign among the children of your hills and dales. Isn't it nice? There are no dividing walls. It is about all God's children who live on the hills and dales of Transylvania. This idealistic picture is ruined every single day when I check the news. I see the growing epidemic of injustice and the tragic consequences of it. I see much unfairness, brokenness, and lowliness in the United States of America too. Ordeals are an inseparable part of life, yet we can make a difference. It is time to shift gears, to overcome homophobia, racism, and narrow-minded nationalism in both sides of the Atlantic. I do believe that together we can make a change. For our role is to build trust in life, maturity, tolerance, solidarity, and social commitment. Our religion is one of hope, of perseverance, and of love. It might sound naive, but I believe in spiritual renewal, in social reform, and distributive justice. May the spirit of compassion guide all of us towards the realms of understanding. For where there is understanding, there is acceptance. Where there is acceptance, there is love. Where there is love, there is peace. Where there is peace, there is blessing. Where there is blessing, there is God. So be it. Amen.